So without further ado, Suzanne Shattuck. Oh, and she's here. Well, you scared me.
Thank you. Okay. It's an honor to be up here, and I just want to thank Joe for allowing me to speak with you today. It's actually on refugee resettlement, which is a hot topic. I am just a regular American. I feel very strongly about this issue, and I think a lot of you, because I've spoken to a lot of you upstairs, could very well be up here speaking because you're very knowledgeable. So I probably won't tell you too much that you don't know, but we'll get started, okay? I'm just going to tell a story of how I got interested in refugee resettlement. I was working in a procedural area in a hospital and was working in recovery this one day, got a patient who was a refugee, and I had to use a live translator. And she had received some pretty bad news, something that was going to require treatment that cost a lot of money. And I remember that day, just she kept hearing about what her rights were and this and that, and she didn't seem concerned about maybe how much the treatment would cost at all. And literally 30 minutes later, I walked 2 doors down. A young lady, very similar in age, American, had received some equally bad news. And as often when that happens, you're standing there with the doctor, and he's telling the news, and this lady, she just said, "I just lost my job. I don't know how I'm going to pay for my treatment." And I thought, and the doctor was like, "Well, you can fill out, some loans, paperwork for loans." And I'm thinking, something is not right. We've got somebody who's not an American who is coming in, getting well taken care of, and then this patient who's an American citizen is, saying, "Well, yeah, you got to pay for it." So that got me interested. And I thought the more I read into it, the more I thought something doesn't smell right, using Admiral Lyon's line from yesterday. So I believe refugee resettlement is a tool by Obama and the leftists to dilute our culture. It is there to crush the American spirit. It's to spread America's success by spreading our wealth, and it's to make us more vulnerable, national security-wise. The establishment Republicans' vote for the omnibus bill was an epic display of betrayal to every one of us because, thank you. They had a chance to halt this program and many other destructive programs, and instead they breathed new life into refugee resettlement. And this is a program that for 35 years has had virtually no transparency, no congressional oversight. And contrary to some, there's a lot of people that say it's humanitarian. If you're talking to a leftist, they're saying, it's culturally, it's great. And no, it's not, because a lot of these refugees want to stay where they are. They want to go back to their home country. So in a way, a lot of refugees are being used as pawns, and it's a forced migration. Obama is forcing these people and pulling them out of their cultural roots and putting them here. And the cost to settle one refugee in America, we could take care of 12 in place. So it makes no sense. And I'm hearing that a lot from different speakers coming up here. This administration has constantly done things that make no common sense, and the same thing Dr. Ben Carson said this morning. So what I want to do today, if we could put up that slide, slide of a refugee, what I used to picture as a refugee, somebody who is destitute, poorly nourished, poorly clothed, and they're grateful for any assistance offered. And today I want to show that there's the mostly Muslim refugees that are coming out of these warring countries. They don't have this thankful attitude, and they're not all leaving their countries for the same reason. So I've got some video clips I want to show you that showcase their attitudes and, more importantly, reveal their motives for why they're coming here. So this first one's called Modern Day Refugee.
The shared bathrooms, it's very gross, it's very disgusting, and it's not enough. There's only 4 cabins for all women in there. It's disappointing. It's not what I had imagined. Like, I prepared myself mentally from Syria that I'm going to suffer from very bad situations. But all what I have imagined, it wasn't as bad as what I'm seeing right now.
Just 2 bread and 1 meals. Not enough for one people.
Very cold, and clothes, no clothes.
Every night cold.
They give some people more clothes and another people not more.
And we feel very bored here. You can just eat, sleep,
use the slow internet. It's so bad.
Just eat and sleep here. Anything other? No.
We asked them for language courses. They said we don't have it now because this is an emergency camp.
I want money, yeah. I want money because I want to smoking and tell my mother in the Syria.
And the camp service, not good.
No service. No service. No service. No service.
Try to help us, the government of Italy. Try to help us. We are receiving bad conditions. Try to help us. We are dying. We are dying. We beg you because we suffer too much.
So we demand our right to stay here. We are here to stay.
Now, sadly, among the refugees, there are very few Christians. And in the last 4 years of the Syrian conflict, I believe approximately only 2,100 Syrians have been settled here. Only 34 were Christians. So we're obviously not helping the people who have genocide being threatened upon them. And in the, I would say the majority of Syrian refugees, and I do the quote unquote because they're not all Syrian, they are not fleeing for their lives, but they're actually running in a race for a higher standard of living that's being paid for by you, the citizen taxpayer. So let's watch this next one. I call it Show Me the Money.
Money! Money! Money!
In the north of Munich, an old military camp is now a migrant centre and a microcosm for the problem Europe faces. While some of the residents are newly arrived from the conflict in Syria, many are not. There are Afghans here, Senegalese, Albanians, Pakistanis and Bangladeshis.
For all the people.
Husam Kabai fled the Syrian capital Damascus with his wife and 2 sons, one of whom is disabled and needs specialist medical care.
Nobody asked me, where are you?
If Europe's leaders now force Husam to relocate from Germany, he'll go home instead.
No, I go back my country.
You go back to Syria?
Yeah. I go to my country. Everybody, if we ask anyone, if in Germany not accept people here, they will back country.
So it's Germany or nothing as far as you're concerned?
Or Germany or nothing. I back my country, of course.
No. 1 month, 100 kuna, eat no good, every day spaghetti, macaron, every day, not good, azil, not good. Me go to Germany. Me go to Germany because Germany very good.
Okay, so another portion of the mostly male refugees are actually following the Hijra, which is like Muslim missions. They do this by moving to a foreign land, they populate, they spread their seed, and then they politically dominate that system there. And it's all about furthering the caliphate. I would say a perfect example would be Belgium and Sweden. And Obama's Refugee Resettlement program is actually exponentially accelerating this Hijra. So we're going to watch this portion.
We are not going to fear of you because we are stronger more than yesterday, and we'll be tomorrow more stronger, and we'll defeat you.
The high Muslim birth rate is changing the political landscape. Imran is looking forward to replacing Belgian law with Sharia law, including amputation for theft, stoning for adultery, and death to homosexuals.
If they want to push us back or something like that, I don't know, maybe they can start to marry 4 wives and have a lot of children. Start with that, maybe they will have a chance, but I don't think so.
Something else that Muslim immigration appears to have brought to Norway is what some here call a rape epidemic. Recent police statistics showed that in the capital of Oslo, 100% of assault rapes between strangers were committed by immigrant non-Western males, and 9 out of 10 of their victims were native Norwegian women.
He said make sex with anyone or make anything.
We are 400 people, okay? How I can bring the girl to here, okay? She go like make 400 times sex. Shit.
Der Uniplatz in Magdeburg heute Morgen. Eine 19-Jährige war hier heute Morgen um kurz vor 4 Uhr überfallen und brutal misshandelt worden.
Die Frau konnte leider bislang noch nicht befragt werden, da sie aufgrund ihrer Verletzungen derzeit im Krankenhaus behandelt wird.
Es ist bereits der 4. Fall innerhalb weniger Wochen. Anfang Oktober wurde eine 24-Jährige auf einem Friedhof in Magdeburg brutal vergewaltigt. Vor rund 2 Wochen wurden 2 19-Jährige überfallen. Verunsicherung bei den Magdeburgern.
عندي أسلم شخص واحد على إيدي يأسلم شخص واحد على إيدي وأنا ببيع الدنيا كلها وما فيها مو بس سوريا ببيع أمي وأبي كمان اللي هن أغلى من سوريا كرمال إنه واحد يأسلم على إيدي والله العظيم أنا جاي لهون كرمال هذا الموضوع.
So one thing I would say though, if they try that as far as the assaults and rapes, they have not met an American patriot that believes in the Second Amendment. So, finally, there are members of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and other terrorist groups that are purposely embedding themselves within this refugee population to gain access to our country. And everybody saw that in Paris. One of the jihadis had been through Syria, had a Syrian passport, had gone through Greece just 1 month prior. 2 that escaped, they found later in Salzburg, Austria. One of them was Algerian, and the other one, I think, Pakistani origin, but they had fake Syrian passports, no problem getting into Europe.
I'm a veteran paratrooper, been in 3 different campaigns in 2 different wars, both Iraq and Afghanistan, and I've had too many brothers and sisters lost over there in those 2 wars.
We are committed to increasing the number of refugees that we take.
Al-Qaeda operatives living right here in the United States, slipping through the cracks of a refugee program.
It's a kick in the face to every veteran there is that's fought in those wars, to us trying to protect our homeland from them coming in, and then the current administration letting them in.
Can any of you tell me how many people who've been given refugee status since 2001 have been identified as affiliated with terrorism in any manner?
This section of Islamic terrorists within the refugees poses the most immediate risk to our safety because that's their laser focused on it. That's the reason they're coming. So Michael Cutler has said, allowing terrorists to roam freely in this country is like letting a kid loose in a toy store with a platinum credit card. I mean, they'll have a heyday here, as they are already starting to. And I don't know that we have any plans to increase our resources as far as FBI law enforcement to track these people. And once they start coming in massive droves, they can go wherever they want. So this next few minutes, I'm going to go over just basically about refugee resettlement, how it works, and who's involved. If I could have this next slide. The architects of the Refugee Act of 1980 is Ted Kennedy, Joe Biden, and Jimmy Carter. What good could come out of those 3 heads getting together, right? So the program is secretive, it's complicated, it's expensive, and it's unfair. Prior to the 1990s, we were choosing our refugees, but we have abdicated that authority to the United Nations. And I am still waiting for one of the presidential candidates to say they're going to kick the UN the hell out of our country. It can be done. I mean, we have not elected them to anything, and they shouldn't be telling us what to do. So the presidential candidate who adopts that, they have my unwavering support. Now, the United Nations High Commissioner, next slide, is the UNHCR. His name is Antonio Guterres. He is the former socialist president of Portugal. He actually refers 95% of our refugees to Ann Richards, who's sitting right next to him. She's the Assistant Secretary of State for Population, Refugees, and Migration. Then they go to the Department of Homeland Security, who vets them with their perfect vetting system. And then they go to Health and Human Services, who tests them for different diseases. Now, if they have TB or HIV, that doesn't bar them from coming into our country. We will treat them and we'll pay for the medicine. And by the way, 66% of TB cases in America are among the foreign-born. Now, upon their arrival, they are connected with one of 9 volunteer agencies. I know you guys have read up on this. VOLAGs is what they're called. So they're linked up with them, and they then put them in whatever town or city they want. It's not like they come in and let's have a town hall meeting. Let's talk about if your community can absorb them or they have jobs for them, they just come right in. And that authority has been given to them through this Refugee Act. Now, many of these VOLAGs, if we could have that next slide, they're listed, and you see some of them, or a lot of them, look like they're religiously affiliated, but yet they cannot share any faith with them. It's more like a human trafficking business because they're paid by the head. As you know, the more refugees they settle, the more money they get. Now, what's interesting to me though is since they cannot share their faith with them, but yet we are using our tax dollars to bring them over here so they can spread, the Muslims at least, to spread their ideology in our country. And I mean, if I don't really believe in separation of church and state, but that should be an issue right there. One of the VOLAGs is the International Rescue Committee. If we put up that next slide, y'all have probably seen this on Facebook, the internet, on TV. The head of this group is David Miliband. He is a Brit. He's all chummy with Soros, Clinton, and Samantha Powers. They have received charitable contributions from all three. Now, next slide. I'll have you guys can read. I call it my goodie slide. This is from my town. This is what the refugees get when they come in. Now, once the refugee has been in country for 30 days, they're eligible for all federal, state, and local welfare programs, and then the contractor sticks around to help them navigate the system. They get them on the welfare doles. And it's not assimilation. They're not trying to assimilate these people. That's clear intent for them to keep their ethnic identity and their cultural identity. Now, they don't want them to acquire the American spirit, in other words, so they start them right off on welfare. The contractor will leave after about 6 months, and then if the refugee has not gotten a job or is not considered self-sufficient, which is a whole other 2-hour talk, the taking care of him falls to the local taxpayer. The cost for this, about $2 billion to resettle them, $8 billion for the annual welfare cost, so that's about, and I can do that math, that's $10 billion. And as I told you before, as a nurse, I had treated some of these refugees, almost always needed translation, either a live translator or telephonic translation. And that's very expensive and time-consuming, especially when you're in a situation where you're trying to be efficient and have assessments and in a procedure where you need to communicate with the patient and you can't do it. Now, what was interesting, I would ask these patients, I said, how did you get here? Because I'm in a town, a small town, and people from all over the place, and I would ask through the translator, and they would say IOM. Well, IOM stands for International Organization for Migration, and they work hand in hand with the United Nations. They logistically move the refugees. Put up this last slide, and just read that. That's a quote by General William Lacey Swing. He is the head of that organization. He spoke at a World Economic Forum last year in Davos, Switzerland, but I thought interesting how he's saying at the bottom of this, how they put so much more into government coffers than they withdraw. And I thought, what an understatement of the year. Now, they also, in the education system, again, we could speak a couple hours on that. There's up to 80 different dialects and languages being spoken in our public school systems. This can only hamper the learning of our students, of the citizens of our schools, and not to mention extra work on the teachers to try to keep up with the learning. And since Omnibus Bill passed, that's 100,000, they're saying 100,000 Syrians are supposed to be coming this next year. And that's huge. So we are being forced, I kind of asked, why are we being forced to go through what Europe is experiencing right now? And does it make any sense? Yeah. So in a way, as a nurse, in closing, I'll just say if I had a patient with cirrhosis of the liver and it was due to alcohol abuse, I would probably not tell that patient to go out and get a fifth of liquor and continue drinking. Okay? In the same way, I feel our country is having a problem with immigration, legal and illegal, and it doesn't make sense, again, for us to continue this refugee resettlement program until we get ourselves healthy and we stabilize ourselves, and then we can take a look at helping others. Thank you.